if your hips get tight because you're sitting a lot more than you'd like to, maybe it's because you're traveling to somewhere fun and exciting and you've got to get there first, or you're just sitting a lot for work like so many of us do, and maybe a little bit too much for leisure too. This is your solution. 3 signs you have tight hips. Number 1, it's your lower back. Your hips are supposed to be mobile. Your lower back is supposed to be stable. And if those two things are flipped, your body is borrowing, and stealing from your lower back whenever you need torque or leverage. Not a good thing. The next thing is knees. Do you have a little knee pain? Something's not quite right. It may be that because you have tight hips, your alignment is not great. Improving the mobility in your hips is going to help your knees. And the third, the more obvious, is that you have achy hips and or you have some hip bursitis. So itis, I-T-I-S, means it's fixable. We can heal that. Generally, it's by rest and recovery. Ice, but it's also starting to strengthen the weak muscles that are making the hip overwork in places it shouldn't. And I'm going to tell you why it's so important to work on those tight hips at the end. But let's dive into these 3 super simple stretches.
For this first one, you want to be on the floor, ideally on a mat, on your hands and knees. And we're going to take one leg forward. So it's right between your hands, essentially. So we're in a nice, long, good alignment. But what we're going to do is lengthen back through the hips and pelvis. So we're just a little bit further back, shouldn't be actually sitting back. So you want to watch the distance back here. Lengthen the sternum forward. So again, it gets really tempting. So in the past years, we've all been very conditioned to take your nose to your knee. That's actually not the best way to get a good stretch. We want to send the hip bone back. We want to send the sternum forward, and then you just drop the head down so you're not straining through the neck. Good, and release. And I want you to bring this up, and if you need to, crawl that a little bit further forward. So right at the edge of your fingertips, you have this heel, and this allows you to fall forward. So we've been positioned here in different times before, and this is a point where you may be more comfortable being elevated just a little bit. So a yoga block, although I have a dumbbell here, a yoga block would be about the same height, may help you get a little bit more distance and lift from your core and not be rounding over. So I want you to drop that hip in, lengthen forward, and just hold on to that. So I really have a lot of weight coming forward, letting gravity do some of the work, but really opening up significantly through the hamstrings, through the glutes. And then release. Nice job. I'm going to move this out of my way, and I want to put this hand right next to the instep. This is the opposite hand so that I can do a little spinal rotation here, opening all the way up. And then release. And we're going to just drag that leg back. I have a really sticky mat, taking it very literally. And the other leg comes forward. So just kind of even and wherever it lands is good for this first step. We're going to just lean forward, pushing to the front through the hip, lengthen that. Good. And again, if you want to elevate, you'd come onto a yoga block. If you have an ottoman or a table that you can hold on to right here, a step, sometimes a ball could come in handy just to elevate you a little bit. And you won't know potentially until you try it. So if you're down and you're feeling a stretch and saying this is fine, it may be fine, but you may find that you actually get a better lift, you get a better stretch, you have your shoulders down and your chest forward even more when you're in this position. And I would have to echo that. That's true for me. So don't just stay and say, I can go down, so I should. Find the position where you're able to get the most opening through the hip flexor, through the inner thigh and the hamstrings on this side, shoulders down, chest forward. So it's a little of everything we want to be optimized. Good, and release. And I'm going to slide this out of the way. My opposite hand next to the instep, and then from here, reaching over and up in spinal rotation. And relax. And apparently a little balance too. We're going to crawl the foot forward. So where your hands are, think fingertips or the edge of them, even with that heel, and then press that hip backward and chest and shoulders forward. So I'm noticing something. I'm going to call your attention to it. So this leg seems to be a little bit tighter through the hamstring. So if I just leave it in that same exact place I had it with the other one, I'm going to feel like there's a little too much pull and therefore probably not get as good a stretch. So I brought it back in a little bit, err on the conservative side. Now I'm taking that tailbone back and the chest and sternum forward, lengthening this out. So when you have the opposite ends going in opposite directions, you get a much better stretch as we go around the joint, which is like going around the corner. Exhale here. Good, and then release. You can slide that back or pull it around to the side. And stay right there on the floor. We're going to do this from all fours and then go to plank. Forward, I'm going to ask you to come into a plank pose. So take your toes down, press the hips back, and then I want you to drop one knee in right between both hands. And I just want you to sit with that for a minute. You can drop the foot flat. But as you're doing this, so be conscious, how much are you trying to rotate? Try to get the top of your thigh to point down, top of your knee and top of your foot pointed down, lengthening forward. If you're a little tight, depending on what you've been doing, hiking, climbing, doing stairs, doing squats, doing lunges that are new to you, at least, or a new weight, overloaded, you're feeling a deep stretch here already in the hip. So I want you just to hold that. So I'm just keeping you here. We go about 30 seconds at the least. Now, I'm gradually going to walk those hands down. And as we get a little bit lower, the stretch may be more intense. It may not be more intense. It may just be somewhere else in that muscle group. So lengthening forward again through the sternum. Remember what we just mentioned. Reaching the sternum forward as the tailbone is pointed back gives you a much better stretch than rounding down and into it. And then when you're ready, keep reaching forward. Get the length, the length, the length. And then forehead can rest on your hands here. Take a couple deep breaths. In this deeper pigeon pose, make sure, checking in, shoulders are relaxed. And then one more time, bring your head up, take your sternum forward, stretch away from that tailbone. And on the exhale, allow yourself to come down and hold on to that stretch just a little longer. Good, and eyes come up, palms come back in. Curl that toe under, lift. Take this one back and out of the way, and you know where we're going. So now your opposite leg, for me, my left knee comes right in between both hands. And we're going to maintain that seated position and check in on this side. So noticing that my leg wants to turn out a little bit. I'm consciously trying to take that thigh, that quadricep, and make sure it's parallel to the floor, knee down, top of the foot down. Good. So if I didn't have quite a bit of significant pressure on this left hand, I'd be rolling off here. So my hip would just rather not be here. And that's okay, right? But know that that's true and just hold and release it. So remember, you're at this point where 10-15% beyond where you feel the stretch is as much as you want to go. You're supporting yourself so you don't go any deeper, But breathing in and out and staying in this place without forcefully pushing allows the muscle then to relax. So it should be getting a little easier. That stretch initially that you had should be a little more subdued. Now lengthen the chest forward and go ahead and walk your hands out, holding right here, and remembering the ideal is sternum forward and tailbone back. And you're going to feel like there's a length between that sternum and the muscle inserting into your deep hip, your piriformis muscle, and then it should get a little easier and you can bring your head all the way down, rested on top of your hands. Inhale and look up, and one more time I want you to get the length. We're going to hold this one more time. Lengthen, and this is where from the length we then give the stretch. Release the tension, any tension you're holding in that other leg. So we've been conscious of that other leg, trying to work the quadricep, top of the thigh down. If you're just forcing that, just let it go. Kind of let your leg relax now. Good, and walk your hands back in and up. Curl the toe under, stepping this back. Good. Pushing back through your heels. Good, and come into a plank pose.
This time, start in a seated, cross-legged position. You might want a pillow.
We're going to unfold the legs, but what I'd like you to do is I'm going to take my left heel, bring it underneath my right bum, so right next to my cheek. With the right leg, I'm going to take it over the outside of that leg. So my right hand goes in the crook of the knee on the right side. You're going to wring the arms up, inhale, and then exhale, push that knee toward me, and I'm going to rotate all the way back and around. Good, and sit upright as tall as you possibly can. Rotate all the way back and behind. Inhale here. Exhale. And then return and bring it to the center. And other side. So it is that left heel close to your right heel close to your left cheek. And your left leg all the way up and over. Sit as upright as you can. You're kind of holding onto that leg in order to get some height. Bring this arm up. We want the length here so that we can tuck this in and get as far over. This is leverage. So as I hold with my back hand sitting upright, then we add the rotation, turning as far around as you possibly can. And releasing.
In order to keep your hips looser, now what happens if the hips are a loose joint, like your knees are a hinge joint? They only go one direction. They're not going to gain a lot of looseness, and they shouldn't. They're supposed to be a stable joint. The hips should be a loose and mobile joint. The lower back is supposed to also be a very stable joint. If everything in that trilogy is working better, your lower back will be a lot more comfortable. Movement, like even walking, will be a lot more comfortable to you. So the trick is, we can't, a lot of us, give up our sitting. You might be able to do a stand-up desk sometimes. You might be able to break up your sedentary time. Those things are going to help. But when you find that you're sitting for a period of time that's beyond an hour, I want you to try to get up regularly, and also, if you can, while you're sitting there, see if you can break this up. While you're on a webinar, can you be sitting with your leg crossed out, press your knee down and out to the side? And would anybody know if you were hinging forward and holding on to that stretch? Just looking like you're eager to listen to whatever they might say next. So you and I will keep it a secret. So let me know if that was helpful. If you have tight hips, I would love to know it. Remember again that tight hips can be the cause of knee pain and or of lower back pain. So if we keep the hips mobile and loose, we're going to be far more comfortable. Now, twofold, you need hip strength and you need hip mobility. We want them both. Of course, we want it all. So I'm going to lead you to another video about hip strength, glute strength specifically, in case you'll need a little help there. We all have lower body boost, but it's not just vanity's sake. It's actually your safety. Hope that was helpful. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell if you want a notification every time we drop a new video, and let me know if you practice these on a regular basis, practicing them daily. You could do them multiple times daily. Nobody ever got injured from stretching too much. I'll see you on the flip side.